I was thinking about how turning negative experiences into fuel has been really helpful for me over the years. And there's a couple of things from my younger years that I can remember that, like one time I got kicked out of a band and I got kicked out of a graffiti crew. And those turned out to be the best things for me at the time. And so I wanted to kind of dig into why that is and how that sort of came to be. So we're all going to have these negative experiences and like it's sort of like taking negative experiences from other people towards you and sort of turning it into fuel. There's a couple of different ways that you can do that and a couple of ways that it could affect you. And so for me right now, the main thing is like I post a lot of content for my business. And so that's where pretty much all of, negativity from other people come from. So people take shots at me on in the comments section and stuff like that. And so, when I look at stuff like that, like you think like, that shit doesn't matter. These are mostly like anonymous accounts and, you know, you, it just doesn't really matter. But at the same time, it's like when it happens, there's kind of two paths you can take. You can either sort of like let it affect you negatively and affect how you move. So like, let's say, when I first started posting content and like seriously, I started, I don't know, like 2019, I think is when I really started making like videos and shit. And it started to, it was sort of my first experience. Like I had been posting stuff on my business pages, but I started gaining a lot of traction around this time. And so when I would see negativity, I would be affected by it. And then eventually I would kind of like remind myself that it doesn't really matter. But deep down, it was actually affecting me quite a bit because I found that when I would make a video or I would go to post it, I would be thinking about how it was going to be received by the people and thinking about what they would say about it more so than thinking about, I believe in this thing and I'm going to put it out, or even to where I am now. Like, I don't even really care. Like, I care that people like the stuff. Like I wouldn't want to put things out that wasn't helpful for people. But at the same time, it's kind of like my mindset now is like, just put it out there and it lands where it lands. It's either going to be, even if it's the best thing. And a lot of times, like the videos that I spend the most time on get the least amount of views and reactions and all this kind of stuff. Whereas a lot of times the stuff that I just throw together really quickly end up doing really well. But I stopped thinking about that. Like I still just produce the stuff that I want to produce and then just let it fall where it falls. And it's completely out of my control at that point. I can control how I make the thing and all this kind of stuff, but like how it's received is not up to me. And so if you're getting negativity, it can either hinder you, which it was in the beginning of my sort of journey on this shit, or it can sort of sharpen you and kind of build up an armor. And so you get more used to dealing with that kind of stuff and get more used to not caring that stuff's happening. Like, I find like even still I get called a toy by like these little kids, these like 14-year-old, writers that are like brand new to the scene. And it's like, well, that could be annoying. Like it really doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter at all. Like other people's opinions of me aren't really relevant. And so I choose to let it be like, sort of like, almost like exposure therapy kind of thing, like you can build up armor and build up mental toughness by being able to receive that kind of negativity and not let it affect you. There's another way that you can go about it. And this isn't something that I've used very often. And it's this kind of like, Andy Frisella talks about this, like using dark energy to propel you forward. And he seems to rely on this quite a bit. And the idea is when somebody says something negative to you, or, something like, you can't do the thing. Like if you tell somebody your goal and they're like, you can't do it. Like what he calls the dark side energy is to like take that and let it fuel you and just be like, yeah, all right, well, I'm going to show you. wait till you see what happens, you know, and you take all the actions required to actually prove them wrong. And so I have a couple of examples where I did use dark side energy. Well, one I definitely used it, and the other one, um, it was more fear of loss. So the first one is, and I don't know if these happened in the order. I think I might have got kicked out of the crew first, and then the band second. But I was in a band, and this was a band called Eyelid. You can listen to it. It's on Spotify. It's an old hardcore band from the 90s. And so this was a band I started, and interesting enough, I started that band when I got kicked out of another band. I'm off to a great start. So I played guitar for a band called Strife. I didn't start Strife. It's another hardcore band. They're still around. They're still very popular. And I was super stoked to get in that band because it was like my first exposure of actually playing music in front of people. And I didn't really get along with a couple of the people there. I also didn't really practice enough. So like my skill level wasn't really where it should have been. And I kind of had a bad attitude. And so they ended up kicking me out after about a year, maybe a year and a half or something like that. And so after that happened, I was like, I want to start another band. And I had this like vision of like this cool, like, I don't know if you guys know the band Neurosis. Like the Eyelid didn't end up sounding like that. But what I really liked about Neurosis was like, they just had like a weird way of doing things, like the way that the music changed up. And like, I was like, I want to do something like that. I was never really a songwriter, but I later found that I was pretty good at being able to kind of pitch ideas and like help arrange things and stuff like that. And the people that were good at songwriting, which was the guitar player in the band Eyelid, he was really good at coming up with riffs and stuff. I wasn't good at that, but I was good at like just giving ideas. Like maybe if we switch to this and like did a quick little bridge here, it might make this part hit harder. So I was kind of good at that sort of stuff. Anyway, so I got kicked out of Strife. I started this other band. That band had sort of like a tumultuous beginning, but then we ended up finding a groove, and it was like the most important thing to me outside of graffiti. Like everything in my being wanted to be in this band. The problem was I wasn't putting in the work to develop my skills, and I was in the band with like a super super talented guitar player, a really talented drummer, a talented singer, and then another rhythm guitar player that was also talented. And I was just sort of like treating it like I'm not really a musician, like I'm a dude in a band. And I wasn't really practicing outside of band practice. And I was kind of falling short. And then it started breeding animosity between me and the lead guitar player. And then I started feeling this tension, and I started, your subconscious mind like picks up like something's going to happen, you know? And so when I started feeling like I could possibly lose this thing, I didn't sink into like depression or anything. I was like, I got to do something about this. And I started taking lessons, and I started practicing a lot, and I made a lot of improvements in a short amount of time. And what was interesting was the band hadn't seen these improvements I made. So like I had been playing for a long time, but I hadn't been taking it seriously. So I had a lot of the muscle memory. I just sort of needed some of the technique, and I needed some of the discipline. And so I think it was over maybe like a 2 or 3 week period. Like maybe we hadn't practiced or something. I started feeling these feelings, and I started like really just doubling down. And I started taking lessons with this guy, and he said like, a way that you can improve really fast is to learn how to play this classical song. It was the Bach Prelude something or other. I don't remember what it was. And so he's like, it's going to be really, really hard to play, but just play that every day. And so I just spent hours a day trying to play this thing. And so as I was doing that, I started coming up with these different ideas of different like bass lines I could do underneath the guitar. All things that I couldn't do before because I didn't have the discipline to really look for those things. And so I'm trying to think of the timeline. This was a long time ago. It was like the mid 90s or something. So by the time the next practice came around, I had been putting in a whole lot of work. It turns out that was the practice they were going to kick me out. So I had loaded all my gear into the room, and they were like, hey, before we start, we got to talk. And they basically gave me the talk like, we're going to kick you out of the band. And it was interesting because like I knew it was going to happen, and I knew I deserved it. But I had already been taking these actions, to try to make it better. And so eventually, like, we were going through this whole back and forth, and I was like trying to defend myself, and they were kind of defending their sort of side of things. And the drummer and I were really close, so he was just quiet. Like he wasn't happy about this whole thing happening, but he also, I think I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I feel like he might have understood why it was happening. And so he didn't really have anything to defend me with. I might even have that wrong. He might have defended me and I just don't remember. But anyway, I ended up getting pissed and I'm like, all right, fine, fuck you guys. And so I started packing up my gear and, we were all really close, even though like I had some kind of animosity with the guitarist just because of like musically we weren't kind of vibing, and he was a really talented musician. And so I think that was kind of creating like a personal rift between us, but they all felt kind of bad. Like they didn't want to do this, And so when I said, fuck you guys, and I started packing up my gear and they were like, Mike, come on, let's just do this, man. I don't remember what the words were, but it was basically like, let's just drop this. Let's forget about it and keep going. So I'm like, all right, cool. We set up our gear and I'm kind of warming up and I started playing that box song and everybody was like, what the fuck? What is that? And I started, telling them what I've been doing, and we started playing. And so we had some new songs and I was like, just playing these new parts that I had come up with. And everybody's kind of looking at me like, what the fuck happened? Like it was like a dramatic change. I'm kind of getting too explainy about this. I don't know if that's a word. But the point is, I knew I was going to lose something, and I knew I was going to lose something really important to me. And instead of falling into this depression and thinking like, well, fuck it, man, I guess I'm not cut out for this, I took action, and I took serious action on making sure that I was worthy of being part of this thing. And so from then on up until the end, I think we broke up in like 98, maybe late 98 or something like that. So it was a few more years after that. I did really well and actually contributed more to the band than I had the previous however long. I don't know how long. I think it was like 6-7 years. The first couple of years, I didn't really contribute as much as I thought I was contributing. And then after this sort of risk of losing everything, it sort of created this energy to push me into what I needed to get into. So hopefully that wasn't too boring, but I got another one. So it was like late 1992, I met Fate and Havoc and Gone. And they were in this crew AD, and then I ended up, they all ended up moving over to MSK, and MSK was just getting off the ground. I started hanging around with Gank. We were writing a lot together. They put me on, and I was, in retrospect, like I don't know why they put me in. I mean, I wasn't as good as any of them, and I wasn't even as up as any of them. I was just kind of close with Gank, and he recommended me getting put on. Maybe I was better than I thought, but I look at my shit back then and I'm like, that shit sucked. But they put me on, and then I was kind of doing my best to keep up with them. We were going bombing all the time. And then Eclipse started helping me with letter styles and shit and trying to help coach me into getting a little better. And so with his help, I kind of made a lot of improvement really fast. I started doing stuff that actually looked pretty good, and I was starting to get props from people. And I was also getting up a lot, so people were starting to recognize the name. Like I had changed my name to Bus right before I got into MSK, so like I was sort of starting over again. So anyway, like as we started getting recognized, and as I started getting recognized, when I would go into a yard and somebody would hit me up and I would say who I was, they would say, "Oh yeah, I seen you up here and here." I started getting a little bit of an ego, and I was kind of like, I was feeling like I was more than I was, and so I was kind of talking shit, and I was kind of just not acting right. And so one day I get a call, and I don't want to say who it was, but he says, "You're out, dude." And I'm like, "What? What happened?" And he's like, "You're whack and you talk a lot of shit." That was basically the way the whole conversation went. I was like, "Fuck, that sucks." But I knew it was true, I earned that, I deserved that. And again, like the first thought I had was like, I'll show these motherfuckers. And so I just fucking went wild. I started just going and doing these big spots and all this kind of stuff. And so within like, I don't even know how long it was. I think it was maybe like a month or so. I get a call from the same person. He's like, "All right, you're back in," So I used that dark side energy. It was getting in that crew was similar to the band. It was like, very important to me. Like graffiti was like the biggest thing in my life. And to get in a crew that like was actually like with people that I respected and we were starting to gain notoriety and all this stuff. Like it was a devastating blow to get kicked out, but it fueled me to kind of step up my game and really push. It was kind of petty in a way that I wanted to like show them that they made a mistake kicking me out. And I don't know if that's why they put me back on. I'm not even sure. We didn't get into all that, but I know that's what I did. I said, "Fuck this, man. I'm going to show them." And I just started fucking going crazy and really trying to push myself, So that's how I use the dark side energy to kind of regain the things that I lost or things that I was about to lose. In closing, I would say that, no matter what you're trying to do in life, you're probably going to run into some kind of opposition, whether it's from other people or whether it's from just the marketplace, or doesn't matter, whatever it is that you're trying to do. It's pretty normal to receive some kind of pushback. And if it's something important to you and it's something you should be doing, when you get that pushback, the idea is to not let it get you down, but to actually add some kind of fuel to your fire. And you can either use the dark side energy. I don't really use it that much, but those are some times where the negativity pushed me into action. So I think that's pretty much my takeaway. So yeah, I guess that's it. I'll see you next time. All right. Good.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And yeah, stay up.